Welcome to Shop Talks. It's a project of the In Kitchen, inkitchen.com. There's free information there, a media company. Hanes is a sponsor, Hirsch Solutions, and Impressions from the show. And I'm Rick Roth, and this is my buddy Lon Winters from Graphic Elephant. And we're going to talk a little bit about hot market printing. So, Lon, what is hot market printing?
Let's see if I can get this right. We typically come up with weird, names for what we do in our business. We've come up with all kinds of things, one being hot market. Our definition of hot market might be on the larger scale, let's say the Broncos won the Super Bowl, then we would...
So it has to do with dreaming then.
Oh, that was
Go ahead.
painful. We're not that far removed now. A little bit, but typically for a championship of any kind, we would, in your locale, we'd set up presses, basically being ready for the minute the license holder, and in the NFL it happens to be Nike, would give us the thumbs up that we're going to go ahead and either risk it because the Broncos will likely beat the Patriots, as the score indicates, or if you're a Falcons fan, maybe not. But ultimately, I'm sure some people got hung with some shirts during that Falcons game. But we would get started and then continue to print well into the night and the next day and the next day and the next day, depending on, I suppose if you're a Patriots fan, it gets a little old and you've got last year's and the year before's. But when it's a city that doesn't have a championship in a while, it can go on for a week or two where you're doing nothing but printing on all presses for the Broncos championship. And then all your other customers get to take a back seat while you're trying to fill that order.
Yeah, I think we'll get into that in a minute of what the problems are with it. So for us, we've mostly printed for VF or whatever they're called now. They hold the licenses. So you either print a shirt that is sold the next morning or the locker room shirt, which is the one that you see them wearing on TV. And it's usually about 3 to 5 hours from the stadium drive. They hire every printer they can. Contracts are signed earlier. And usually, at least for VF, you have to have 2 presses until they're desperate. And we mostly did not print until the game was over or was absolutely certain. So you set up usually every press. You have to do samples ahead of time. I have some samples of many teams that have not won because you have to sample either way. Has to be a secret.
I did mention the Broncos, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It has to be a secret. Like, I know one person that did hot market printing, they got fired from it because they revealed to a newspaper what the championship. I mean, it's kind of stupid, really. The whole idea is that it's a jinx. Oh, you made a championship shirt and you didn't win the championship yet. But there's no way that you could get ready without making a sample. So anyway, you make a sample, that's approved, you're ready to print. In our case, it's kind of strange. We've been on TV a lot. We're in Rhode Island, and they don't have that much to do with Boston, except we print the shirts. So they have a lot of drama. Are we going to print the shirts or not? And they come out, and there's many people in our area think all we do is print the Red Sox, when we've done it about 3 times and for 3 days. It can be an amazing thing. The first time the Patriots won, nobody thought they would win when they beat the Cardinals, was it? Whatever. No, Rams.
Rams,
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry, the Rams. And we printed 50,000 shirts in 24 hours on 4 presses, and then printed for a few more days. Generally, it doesn't last weeks. A lot of the license holders have their own printing companies, and they eventually take over and start sending their product in. But for right after, if you're going to buy something from Dick's Sporting Goods the next day, that all night they're coming to pick up the shirts from your place and bringing them there. So are any of you thinking of getting into hot market, like you have a big enough shop that you might be doing it? All right, so we'll tell you why you might want to and why you might not want to. Lon, how about a few reasons why you might not want to?
So it sounds sexy. Your team wins. It's exciting. during prep, it can be painful because your staff is typically not focused because they're either. We've learned the hard way to run kind of an on-site party with very little liquor, rather than letting people come in at halftime or towards the end of the game, because there's an emotional thing going on. We have found that we are quite productive for the first couple hours, and then we lose a lot of steam when everybody starts dragging ass and getting tired, and it's midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So we've learned kind of how to rotate printers to keep things rolling. And it sounds like a cash cow, and it is. We mentioned pricing earlier in another shop talk, and we had to wrestle pricing for a while because we had been through. I hadn't personally. I went through 3 Super Bowls before we actually won the 4th. And every time we were disappointed, and the people we were working for at the time had actually done the 4th as well. So there is a big buildup and a lot of expense, and at that time, we weren't getting paid for the front end. I think recently we've negotiated, not a lot, but you get they'll
pay you for some screens and setup time, but basically you lose out. I mean, I've heard of one printer that would always place a bet on the other team, so they would at least recoup their losses a little bit. But yeah, it's not. You got to negotiate a price that makes it worth your while. You got to not arrange somehow so you don't have drunk employees coming in. We find that if we have people buy in ahead of time, like I get my employees to say they really want to do it ahead of time, so that makes a big difference. And then what sport it is makes a big difference. So if you're going to print, say, for basketball Final Four, college, you win or you don't. At least you only got ready once. If you print for the World Series or the NBA Finals, you could get ready 4 times and never print. That's bad because you all have to be there. So you have to call all your employees in. They don't pay you to get ready. They only pay you those crappy fees I told you about. So, I mean, I remember the Indians lost one year. My friend had like 6 presses ready 3 times, and they never printed anything. And it can be worst case where somebody goes up 3-0 and then they lose 4 in a row and you're up Schitt's Creek without a paddle.
In that case, however, Boston was the last to do it, so maybe that worked out.
Actually, funny story. I was once on the Providence Journal front page. They had a story, me in my Yankee hat, and the supposed dilemma I had as a fan of the Yankees, and I would get to print a lot of Red Sox shirts. But I'm a Yankee fan. I don't care about the money. I was rooting for the Yankees.
But you took the money.
I took the money, though, yes.
Well, and you mentioned that could be a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday type of thing. So you're shut down almost for a week. You can pull down and print some jobs in between, but your staff is tired and wore, and so it's a pretty hefty commitment when you're in that business. You kind of got to be in or not.
Yeah, football tends to be a better one for a lot of printers because Super Bowl's in February. It might be a little slow in most parts of the country at that point, so you can afford to not put off your regular work. But other times of the year, like October, right before Christmas, fall, at least in New England, that's a tough one. And I think actually we're not signing up for it this time. You sign a contract ahead of time usually. I mean, they'll scramble at the last minute when somebody kind of rises up and might win at the last couple weeks of the season or something, but mostly they try to line people up ahead of time, and you have to sign a contract and you commit so many presses of such a size to the effort, and you have to do it, and you have to deliver a certain amount of shirts. In general, they figure, even if you have a faster rate, they figure about 350 shirts an hour per press. And it's not just printing. Usually you have, a lot of times you're not putting them in bulk folds. You have to have enough people to put them in packs. So there'll be like, 2 smalls, 4 mediums, etc. And those packs have to be gotten ready. And then certain packs put together that are all going to certain locations. And they have drivers outside your place waiting to take them. The good thing is they kind of don't care about the quality too much. They just got to be there by the morning, so you don't stop maybe quite as often for a piece of lint or whatever. You can usually negotiate a little higher price than you might normally get, but not tremendously high considering you're paying overtime at night, etc. But it has its advantages. People do get into it. You feel a part of it, especially like I said, we've been even on TV about it. They'll come and show us start printing after the game is over. People feel a little bit part of the winning that way, and that I think has been a charge for people. They get the first shirts too, right? They go home. Usually the licensor lets you take some shirts for everybody that works, and it has its benefits. But yeah, staying up all night is not that glamorous.
And you can, I mean, we're talking, if you've got a couple automatics, you're probably looking at $30,000-$40,000 you might be able to make in a week or couple 3 days. So there is an upside to it. But that being said, if you overcommit, I mentioned it earlier, your regular customers, even if they're patient and they say, hey, no big deal, could I get an extra large, they're less patient after they've got their extra large and we still haven't gone to their job. So it's a careful balance to do hot market and make sure that you don't disappoint your other customers, even if they don't tell you.
Yeah, I think we made a mistake early on where everybody came in and worked on it, and now we only do it if we can make a crew that works on it and some other people that will come in during the day and take care of some regular business at least. Because if you're just closed, I don't know, no one really wants to hear about it, like Don said.
And we recently have changed our business model to the point where we have said no thank you the last probably 10 years. It was a big part of our business and building our business for a long time. And it doesn't have to be just the pro sports. It's college team. Even the bigger high schools have, you're not going to do 20,000 pieces, but you might do 2,000, and they might need them overnight for one of the larger schools. Those kinds of things, and there are people that kind of build their business around hot market and they're equipped for it. That's just what they do, particularly if they can run multiple shifts or they're already running a second shift or even 3 shifts. Then you're able to feather it in if it's not 50,000 pieces that have to be done by tomorrow at noon kind of thing.
Any questions about hot market printing? How do you get in contact with them? I think if you ask me, I'll give you the contact.
If you ask me, I'll give you contact
yeah,
too.
There's only a few people own the licenses actually to do this, and it's been consolidated. Like Majestec was one, but I think they're owned by somebody else now, etc. VF, Nike, I don't know. There's only a few actually.
Adidas owns some of the colleges. Under Armour owns some of the colleges.
What is profit out of the $30,000 or $40,000? Depends. One thing you got to look at is what they're going to have you print. Like if they have a difficult print that goes slowly, that's pretty terrible. The year actually the Patriots lost to the Giants when the guy caught the stupid ball in his head, like we had the easiest print ever and we were going to do like 50,000 shirts, and that guy, David Tyree, is my least favorite person in the world pretty much. I needed the money at that point. But you're paying a lot of overtime. You're going to exhaust your staff. You can't expect them to come in after staying up all night. So you got to weigh a lot of different things. I think you can charge enough and they will have you print enough that you could make 20,000 profit probably in a couple of days. That's the upside, and you have to weigh that. It's a lot of hard labor.
You're going to earn it.
Yeah, you will earn it. There's not a lot of changes. Your staff can all work on printing. There's no screen making. You want to make like one extra set of screens so you don't stop if it breaks, but that's about it. Is the $20,000 more than normally make? I would say yes. In a couple of days, yeah, for sure.
Yes, as a general rule, but again, we've stopped because the the effort and the drag it put on our operation. And I mentioned it in the last talk we had. We kind of went from contract heavy operation to a full package heavy operation, and this is contract, so we're not really equipped staff wise, systems wise, space wise, fulfillment wise to lay out all the prepping and then be able to pre-pack it all. And then they all like them in small boxes, in 12s and 24s, and on pallets. And each one of the retailers has kind of a special what they want and how they want them packaged. And we're just not equipped to do that. So in order to be equipped, yeah, it's probably still more than we'd make in that period of time. But the effort and the energy, and we might stumble to the point of maybe it's not quite worth it. We've just made that decision not to.
You have to look at the print and then your staff as well also. Normal print operation, well, most, how fast you set up is the real key, not how fast you go. This one, there's just one setup usually. Occasionally there's more, but it's usually one setup. So it's how many loaders do you have, and will those loaders keep it up all night? So basically, you can have other people unload, you can have other people fold, other people making the packs, other people putting the boxes together, all that kind of stuff. But how many people do you have that can load and keep loading? Because you're going to want people to load during breaks, etc. And I mean, if you go real fast, they're figuring to do $3.50 an hour, and you can make good money at that. We've had nights where we're done at 2 a.m. because we printed them all. Like, we went fast. If you go at 700 or 800 or 900 an hour, if it's some easy print and you got your best people loading, you can really get it done quickly. Your ears are better than mine.
I can't.
All right. I'm old. I can't hear, man.
I can't hear you.
Oh, how much do you charge? You charge as much as you can, and so what will happen is they'll give you a contract and they'll say how much it is. So really great thing happened the first time. Never thought the Patriots would win. I was like, I'm not doing it for that, and I made some larger number up for the one number for the T-shirts, one for the sweats. It was much higher, and they're like, yeah, whatever, because they have to fulfill their commitment by the NFL, so they have to hire printers that will do this. And then they won, and I got all that money. So, but that's rare. I think generally it used to be only about 65 cents or something like that. Now lately it's probably more like $1.15, something like that, a print.
It's been around $1 for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah. I think with ink going up, et cetera, you probably get $1.25 or something like that is about all you could expect. Well, if it's the Mets and the Yankees, they give you both, and otherwise they don't only give you one. All right, so the question is, do they give you one team or both teams? And the second part of the question is, what do they do with the losing team shirts? So in my case, I guess he's printed some losing team shirts. We never have. They never have had us print until the game was decided. That's, we're all ready to go, but, Vinatieri kicks the field goal, we jump up, we go and start printing. Like, until then, we did not print. I think a couple of times the game was absolutely out of reach, and we would start printing. But in general, they don't do that anymore. They used to always show, we're sending all these shirts to some other country or whatever. They don't do a lot of that anymore, I don't think. Both teams, only once have I had both teams. It was the Patriots and the Eagles. We were close enough to Philadelphia. It was more actually that there was more that they couldn't get. They knew if the Eagles won, they couldn't get enough printers. So we also had the shirts there. Because they don't like it, they have to send the shirts back. So we printed the Eagles shirts as well after they won. So, but that's rare. Usually you get like nothing. You get a few $100 for making the screens. That's it.
It's mostly proximity because they want to be able to go to stores early in the morning through the night. So if you're not right there, you typically aren't going to get the losing team. We had one instance that was odd years ago. I'm born and raised in Nebraska, so I'm a Husker fan. They haven't been relevant in 20 years either, but back when they they got their asses beat by Colorado the week before the month before the bowl games, and then they were in a bowl game and Colorado was in a bowl game, and if a whole bunch of things happened, Nebraska could win the national championship, and if a whole bunch of other things happened, Colorado could win a national championship, but they weren't playing each other. So we had 2 presses set up on Nebraska and 2 presses set up on CU, and neither won.
You had a question here? No, that's all right. What are the quantities expected? So in general, we've printed for VF mostly, and it's been $350 an hour. You contract, and they want you usually at least 12 hours. They will tell you the quantities. Like, we want you to do 6,000 shirts. We want 10,000. We want 15,000 if they win. And then you might not have heard, and they don't want anything if they lose. And they don't usually give you another team. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so what's process will you do? DTG would be out of the question. Screen printing, they wouldn't accept transfers, I don't think. And then the other thing they do hire is also embroidery. Like, if you have enough head, you have to have a lot of heads though for that probably, because you really would have to crank out some hats. I think they lose on the hats a lot. Like, they have to do those ahead of time.
They do a lot of patches for hats too. They don't do
heat apply, yeah, that's right.
rather than the embroidery itself. So, but if you've got both, you can sometimes supplement. You're not going to get a lot of embroidery, and those of us that do both know that it's so slow.
Yeah.
But you can usually supplement if you happen to have it as well.
Recommended way to print for hot market, you mean? It would be, they're mainly going to look for somebody that has pretty big presses and at least 2 presses. And because they want you to be able to print whatever design they come up with, and they often have really stupid designs. Despite them making t-shirts all the time, I've refused to print stuff because it was separated so stupidly. They'll have 3 grays that look alike, or they'll just have the wrong print order. They're trying to tell you how to print it. Yeah. And I always fight back, and we print it the way we want to print it. So we were involved in the Bruins once, and like the one that they really wanted us to print, we were printing at like 300 an hour. It's the fastest we could go, and we weren't even going that fast. And then I'm like, no, we're not doing these other 2 unless we reseparate, and you're going to pay. And we printed those at like 800 to 900 an hour. Screen printing.
Screen print, yeah.
Screen printing, all screen printing, yep.
And how many times we got to do outlines? What is it with athletics where we got to do outline after outline after outline in all 4 corners?
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with them. Other questions? Sure. Who's providing the garments? They provide the garments. Occasionally, even they want you to relabel garments, but usually they are supplying the garments. So you have to receive thousands of garments, and if that team loses, you have to send back and do the paperwork on thousands of garments. They also usually send you extra garments, so there's a lot of paperwork afterwards to account for every garment. You get hologram stickers, the official stickers, and all the numbers have to add up. The number of stickers, the number of shirts.
Ooh, they're tough on that.
Yeah, and they should be, because people have been caught. Somebody in my area was caught. They're printing the shirts for the contractor, and they're printing their own and putting them out the back door. But I think they got arrested for it, actually.
That's a little harder to do these days.
Oh, yeah, they send their own people. And if it's a veteran person, usually they're helpful, or, well, the most helpful is that they go in the other room and sleep, because they just get in the way usually. One time, for example, we got somebody and they were like complaining about the quality, and the person had never been sent out on this, and I had to call, because we've done it a lot of times, and I was like, you have to get them to chill out or leave, or we are not doing any more shirts. And they made her leave, and we printed normally, and it worked out fine. But they always send somebody, especially if it's the first time you do it, they want to make sure you're not stealing. They want to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to. They want to make sure you're not lying about how many you're getting done and whether you're hitting the delivery times. So you don't actually usually deliver them all in the morning. They're coming all night long and taking shirts.
Yeah. And it's probably the first few times you kind of are in, la la land as a business owner, or you're honored to be involved in this. And it only takes a few times through it before you realize you got a whole lot more leverage than you think you do. And you can't let these guys push you around, because if you do, they will. They're Nike or they're whoever, and they own the license, and they need you as bad as you need them. So it's got to be kind of a good relationship, which we learned how to kind of create the boundaries, and that's on you.
And they're a little bit like mobsters or something. Also, they own the license. They just have you. They got you by the what, and they. It's the college championship, then it's the NFL, then it's baseball, and they don't care that much. So when we did the Bruins, one is we were psyched, we were Bruins fans. The other is there were people calling them, can we get more shirts? They didn't care. They said no. They were done. They just wanted to go home. And we could have printed tens of thousands more shirts. They were making us print the design I mentioned that printed so slowly, and so people had signed up for that design, so they wanted to send it to them. And I was like, people don't care what design. Why don't you tell them that we can give them the other one 3 hours faster? They wouldn't do it. So I even tried. I answered the phone when there were phone calls for them. I said, do you care what design you get or how fast? And they were like, how fast? Tell them that. They didn't care. They didn't care. They're kind of like that. You got to be, like he said, you got to be strong if you're going to deal with them. That's all right.
How do you position yourself to get that call? I mean, are they just cold calling shops?
How do you position yourself to get that call? Well, I'll tell you, usually if it's a team that won a lot, they already have people they worked with, and that'll mostly be what they get. Sometimes they even have people that work with them on a different level, like VEF has, I don't know, people that print Levi's for them or something, and those people get it first. And then if it's somebody that comes out of nowhere, and especially if it's going to be, people buy way more shirts if somebody hasn't won in a long time. The Cubs, that's a license to print money. Then they're going crazy. They are calling everybody, and they'll find you. And you can even compete against, if there's multiple licenses, how much money you're going to get. But otherwise, I was saying you could probably ask Lon or I. We'll give you our card if you want for the contact. No. So the question is, do you pitch the Pelicans that you want to print for them? No, it would be rare. I think the Cowboys have their own printing facility. In general, the teams, the league has a license, and that's owned, like the aforementioned mobsters. They own the license, and that's it. We'd be on TV for printing the shirts, so many stores or people will call, can I buy a shirt? No. Where can I buy it? Well, you got to go to Dick's Sporting Goods, and that's it. Nowhere else, because they contract with VF, and VF has the exclusive license or one of two exclusive licenses. Usually the licenses are for different things. One is for lower level department store type things, and one for the higher level ones, if there are such a thing. And whatever, different types of stores, they have a license, and you have to work for those companies. If you're talking about in general printing, that's even harder to get in on that. Other questions? Who makes the call to print? Is that what you said? Yeah, VF would be the same company that owns 1 million clothing lines, etc. Is it even called VF anymore? I don't know. No, VF got sold to somebody else, I think.
Something group now, I think it's.
Yeah, actually I've said VF, but they're called something else now. They're owned by somebody else.
Which are multiple clothing lines.
Yeah,
that
it's always big, Reebok, Nike, Adidas, like that owns the licenses. Other questions? Hey, thanks for coming here. I want to thank sponsors again, Hanes, Hirsch Solutions, Impressions. I want to thank, how about a hand for Lon Winters?
How about one for Rick and Pam? Put this thing on.